Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm not used to, could we make it a little lower? I'm not used to welcoming people to the Shalom Hartman Institute here. Uh, but it's appropriate. But I'm going to play the role of talking about the Shalom Hartman Institute there, or more the world that we're living in. And I felt, in talking with Yehuda, instead of me starting with lengthy remarks, I'm going to start very briefly, but I really want to talk about whatever you want to talk about. You decide. Because if you're like me, and not everybody's like me, I appreciate that. I tend politically to be on the center left. For some people, the center left is radical left. For some people, the center left is traitor. For some people, the center left is far right. So, but I tend to align myself with center left, which it's important just to define the categories, because categories don't seem to mean anything anymore. Doesn't matter what you believe. We associate categories with people in order to silence them, not in order to understand them. I've always believed, and truly almost always since I started thinking about this question, that to be a Zionist is to be committed to a people who aspires to the highest level of moral and spiritual values. To be a Zionist is to aspire to live at peace with the Palestinian people in a two-state solution by side. To be center-left is to understand that while these are my deepest aspirations, their failure in implementation is not necessarily my failure alone. I have come to believe that it is also our failure, but it is certainly not our failure alone. And there is no more left wing in Israel. Left wing in Israel would be the Meretz party, which more or less disappeared, are those who believe that if we would just stop settlements, if we would just say yes, then peace would descend on the land of Israel. There is almost nobody within the Jewish community who believes that. There are Israeli Arab Palestinians who do believe that, who believe that that would be possible. But there is almost nobody within the Jewish community who advocates that position. And hence the complete dismantlement of the left wing in Israel. And when the head of the most left, which is always a relative statement, is someone by the name of Yair Golan, who's a very decent man and a good man, but any connection between him and left-wing political categories is almost incidental. Is incidental. So I am in the center-left, and part of what makes this reality that we're living in now for someone such as myself is that I never expected that we would be in the reality that we are in. And there's so many parts to that, and I won't go into all of them. But for me, the deepest disappointment or the deepest struggle is to see my country fail for such a long time. To see various checks and balances that I always trusted. I was never a Netanyahu advocate. Never was. Never voted for him. But I always respected him. And he was always a responsible figure, protecting Israel's judiciary, making sure that our wars were short, never aspiring to achieve political gain through military might. Not even personal political gain. I even mean political gain for the state of Israel. fewer soldiers die under Netanyahu in the past, before these last 2 years, than under any other prime minister in the history of the state of Israel. More soldiers died from suicide than from combat during the years of Netanyahu's prime ministership. If you remember the various operations in Gaza, he would declare them over, and he would declare victory when it was clear that there was no victory, because he knew there was no victory to be achieved. To see Israel where it is now, floundering, lost, directionless as a country, is something that I never expected. Here, it doesn't shift in any way my commitment to the country, my love for the country, or my commitment to the Zionist enterprise. But it does create profound pain and constant exploration about what the problems are, and how do we solve and move back to the Israel that I dream about, the Israel that I care about. As you know, and as we know, elections matter. And this government is pursuing policies very different than policies that I would advocate for. Some of them I could understand, some I could even respect, but many of them, and much of what has been going on for the last couple of years, is almost unimaginable. And I wanted to share with you one insight that I learned from somebody who swore me to secrecy. So I can't bring redemption to the world by quoting him. But it was such an interesting insight. I am in his debt. I didn't think about this, because I'm constantly trying to figure out what's happening to us. Like, really? What's happening to us? And there are so many factors. He added a factor, and this is a man who is has a rank of general and has spent 500 days in Gaza since the beginning of the war. And after saying to me, Donniel, this is not the army that you know or knew, this is the following insight he offered. He said, besides the moral challenges and the political challenges, there is no one who is held responsible for anything. And he said, do you know why? And I didn't realize this. If the chief of staff doesn't resign on October 8th, if all the people who were in command on October 7th stay in power, under what right do they have to critique anybody under them for anything they do? And as a result, today, you can do anything. Anything. And I won't give you lists of all those anythings, some of the things that I know. I will not do that. But let's just take the last example. Many of you know I was a tank commander. Tanks aren't precision firing mechanisms. My tank was the best you could achieve. It's an old tank. Plus minus 50 yards. Which, if you're actually trying to hit another tank, you don't use tanks in order to kill a civilian or a soldier. A tank is about 2.5 meters high. And if you're 2 kilometers away, you don't have to be exact, because even if you can't be short, but if you're hitting longer, it will hit the tank and blow it up. Even if the tank wasn't there, it would. The current tanks, the Merkavas, have an accuracy of, if everything goes well, since they have laser systems to measure distances, maybe plus 20, plus 10. That's if it's like perfect. Everything's calibrated. In which universe do you use a tank to take out a camera? A camera. In which universe do you use a tank to take out a camera in a hospital? Which under international law and Israeli code, you don't touch hospitals. So when a hospital is not a hospital, fair enough, there's things you have to do. But if there's a camera on a hospital, you have at your exposure tens at your, not exposure, at your disposal, thank you. Tens of things that you can use, especially given the strategic positioning of the army and the complete control of the terrain. From drones to sharpshooters, there's so many things that you could do. Even a little drone with a small little grenade. Pinpoint. You want to take out a camera? You can take out a camera. When you take out a camera on a hospital using a tank shell? And when do you fire a second time? They were trying to get the camera. But anybody who knows tank shells, you know. You're trying to get a camera? This is what you're using as precision? Who decided? Nobody. Could have been a junior officer saying, they have a camera, they're watching. It's dangerous, take it out. But what do you use? Israel apologizes. The army even says, we're going to look into it. We in Israel don't know of one instance where somebody was removed, maybe one, in 2 years. Even the chief of staff says, because we are now planning the move into Gaza, we're not going to continue with this investigation. Because the reality, nobody decided. Nobody decided. Nobody's responsible. Nobody's planning. It's just chaos. In some sense, it would be better, in a perverse sense, if there was some very definite plan. There's just stuff I never imagined. And in the midst of that, seeing the unbelievable indifference of Israeli society to these stories, most of which they do not know because they choose not to know. And if something is reported in Haaretz, which is almost the only one who will report, oh, that's Haaretz. Doesn't even have to register as a significant issue. So it's just try. And then when I add to that, your world, I know many of you, who are the chief lovers of Israel in the North American Jewish community. The chief lovers, the chief teachers of Israel and Zionism. The people who insist very often, to the detriment of your careers, that Israel remain part of what you teach. And when I experience it through your eyes, and we add to this equation the fact that not only are we in defense, even though we're not really in a defensive war anymore in Gaza. That stopped, I believe, May 2004. We've shifted from a defensive war. But to see you in a defensive reality, having to deal both with Israel that you know and Israel that you love, and at the same time, have to defend Israel in conversations where the goal is not even to understand you. The goal is to declare you guilty. And how you function in all of these environments. With that, we're in a pickle. And so, what do you want to talk about? Anybody, anything. Yes, please.
So, I'm so grateful for your being vulnerable here, and I think it might have even been your last, for heaven's sake, that was live, was the one that was famine. Was that the last one you guys did?
I don't know. We're going to start again next week.
But it was like a big mic drop.
Yeah.
And and I almost felt like, how are they going to do another episode next week? And sure enough, you haven't. No, I mean, and I'm, on that episode, you and Yossi were going back and forth, and you were really like, no, we knew. We just didn't want to know. And I want to know who's hearing you. I want to know what you're doing with that, what you're going to say next. And there's a lot of talk in the Jewish far left, for sure, about all of us rabbis in the center left suddenly, pitom, waking up in July 2025, saying, we see, and this is terrible, and there's a big moral blotch, and we failed. And what's the tshuva we're going to do? They're asking us.
Right. There's many levels to your question. If I could start with the last one.
And I have more, because I've been listening to you.
You've been listening to me.
Yes.
I have a profound, it's on a spectrum between disdain to derision of people who ask someone else about their tshuva. That level of self-righteousness is idolatrous, and one that I have no ability to even, so I choose not even to talk with them. But they might be your friends, and therefore you might not.
I mean, they're saying it to me too.
That's what I'm saying. I know that. I hate people who ask other people about their tshuva. And I hate it even more when someone stands in judgment of somebody. Like, what are you standing in judgment of? What you knew, when you knew, how you knew. Now you know. Now you know. And what we know varies. So it's true. There's a lot of people who hate liberal Zionists. There's a lot of people who hate center left, or center right for that. There was an article recently in the Tablet. The editor of the Tablet was quoting my category of troubled committed, basically saying that's a category that always becomes troubled and stops being committed. And Zionists could only be untroubled committed. And so, okay. So all those who know, if I'm going to say there's a we here, and I don't mean to be insulting to anybody here because, I'm not going to say a we. There's some of us are a we. I could say we're a we, you and I. The only thing that we could do is talk, protest, be active. But as rabbis, we're teachers. That's what I am. And that's what I and the Institute do. Now, there are many, in Israel, it is much more difficult than it is here. Your more difficult challenge is people on the left who are saying, now you know, welcome. And they want to move you away from your liberal Zionism. You see, now, if you know there's hunger in Gaza, so now are you finally going to give up on Israel? In Israel, liberal Zionist conversation is very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. There's nobody in the political spectrum who is today speaking a liberal Zionism of the type that I or many of you, that's a norm here in North America. Even Yair Golan never discusses moral issues, ever. It's all tactical. Nobody is speaking a moral Zionist discourse in Israel. There are some, no one in the political spectrum. Those of us who do, there's death threats. For the first time in my life, I actually was thinking about security issues, not from terrorists, but from people who could actually come into the Institute legally, and you're armed. And we were thinking about that, but I think it's quieted a little bit. They're constantly trying to attack us, harm us, from the government down, marginalize us, limit the amounts of people that we could be exposed to. Part of a job of a teacher is to talk and not worry about who they're reaching. That's not part of that. My father used to say, if you wanted again, I apologize if this isn't politically correct, but my father was the opposite of political correctness. When he said, if you want to see results, become a plumber. That was one of his favorite lines. We're teachers. Like, I actually learned plumbing and I learned electricity and carpentry, and it really is, it's a beautiful thing. It's actually to see something flow and work. You could actually, to go from broken to fixed is a remarkable experience. And so it's true. And you don't feel that as a teacher. We have upped our work with change agents in Israel and expanded them very, very dramatically. If our primary focus in the past was academics alone, educators, now we're actually including social activists, and part of what we're trying, and more and more lay leaders, social activists in Israel, and part of what we're trying to do is to push all of our people to be much more active in wherever they can be. I refuse to believe that Israel lost its moral conscience. You don't lose your moral conscience so quickly. You don't move from having one moral value system to having a completely different one overnight. But certain things are causing Israelis to act in a certain way. And I'm hoping, everybody's waiting for elections. May 26th is the new date. And if for some reason that doesn't happen, October 26th. And then the most critical question facing Israel is, as a democracy, is what country we want. And we might lose. It's close. I hope we won't, but that's the fight. But in the meantime, part of our job as teachers and rabbis is to go after one person after another and try to just talk, and more than that, make room for a certain type of conversation. And to make people realize, I've always felt this, that people feel alienated when they don't feel that there's room for their questions. And so if we speak in a certain way, we give them some room to just breathe a little bit. Supporters of Israel, we need room to breathe. Do you feel that I answered a little bit? I'll let but you feel for the first part I answered?
I'm grateful for your answer.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I just want to let you know that I actually have a leftist activist person go into plumbing. For real. This person said, I'm done. I have to make a living. And plumbing really did it. And I said, Kol hakavod. License.
Donniel, thank you for, again, your honesty.
and your emisticite, I want to just piggyback on Dardashti's comment there, which is, so, and as what you said, so we are teachers of Torah, and we come to Hartman to be replenished, to be recharged, to be inspired, to be engaged in Machlokes L'Shem Shamayim. So my question as teachers, aside from the amazing sources and resources that you provide us with, I engage in everything online, what is, in your humble opinion, the approach this moment is asking us to take in order to be able to recover the moral imagination that we seem to have lost? I didn't say we lost our moral compass, but you talked about dreaming, and it feels to many of us, I'll speak for myself, but I think there's many in the room who feel this way, that we have lost the ability, we've lost the language, aside from making room in the conversation, to guide it towards a conversation and teachings of Torah about recovering and dreaming the dream of that moral imagination again.
Right. See, it's actually, there's no new Torah about this. We have good Torah. It's been here for quite a while. Depending on who you ask, between 2,000 to 3,000 years. We have good Torah. We have a lot of bad Torah. We have a lot of evil in our tradition. But most of us have become quite adept at either reinterpreting the evil, ignoring it, or just skipping over and concentrating and saying, there are two voices in the tradition, and this is my Judaism, and that's not my Judaism. We're quite adept at that. In our Judaism, the Judaism of liberal Jews, whether they're Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, Reconstructionist, Renewal, Post-denominational, or anything in between, has certain core features that have been here for quite a while. Features that speak about the value, the inherent equality of human life, that speak about the primacy of the ethical, that speak about the independence of the ethical, that believe that Israel, the chosenness, is not a reward but a responsibility, that justice and the pursuit of peace have to be cornerstones of what we do. We all know, like we speak about the ethics of the prophets, and we know it's not the ethics of the prophets. The prophets have so much hatred and so much war and blood. Hatred for Jews and disdain for others. But we all got our 3 chapters in Isaiah, our 2 in Amos, we got them. And we have them. And so part of what you have to do is just use them. Just stand up and they're there. We know them. And say, and like, now, this is, again, and you know this. Now, why is your question so important? Because I want to put myself in your place for a moment. And I live in 2 worlds. And so I could understand half of what you experience. So that, for me, half makes me an expert. But you'll take it and change it and do anything you want with it. I don't know if I said this on the podcast or not. But the debate, much of the debates that we are being attacked on, let's say genocide, or when that's the debate, there's no room for you to even talk about anything that you want to talk about. We have let our enemies determine the conversation. Now, there are some people in Israel who are advocates of genocide. There are genocidal Jews in Israel. There are. Not all of them, but there are. And whether the technical definition of genocide fits what Israel's doing or not, actually harms your soul And when now you can't, now publicly, that's why there's two different conversations. There's against the enemies, we have one conversation, but inside, the conversation about whether we are committing genocide or whether we are intentionally starving Gazans, when that's the conversation, you can't be rabbis. Because you can't talk about the issues that you have to talk about. Because it doesn't matter whether we're intentionally starving people. After 2 years, we have yet to set up a food distribution system. Guilty. Was it intentional starvation? Is there starvation? How many calories must a person have before you qualify it as starvation or not? That's the conversation. That's it. Like, that's what's relevant for us to figure out right now. Like, do they have enough? And how much of the humanitarian aid is Hamas stealing or not? And is the United Nations manipulating us or not? Like, excuse my French. I apologize, and I don't mean, who gives a shit? 600 and what, 80 some, 90. Do you have a food distribution system in place? Have you thought about it? That's where the problem is. So when I'm fighting that, I don't get to talk about what I need to do tshuva about. I don't get to talk about because, that's not my fault. I'm not committing genocide. And we all Jews now, just like years ago, we became experts in what percentage of uranium enrichment, when it becomes dangerous or not. Now we are all experts in the official definition of genocide, which involves the intent to destroy in all or in part, and the intent clause, and how could the intent clause apply to Israel in the aftermath of October 7th. And so we're all talking, that's not the issue. You're killing people indiscriminately, all the time. All the time. Happening all the time. Nobody is being called to account for it. Nobody's responsible. It just is happening. So 60,000 deaths in Gaza. Let's take out 20,000 Hamas terrorists. Let's take out another 20,000 as collateral killing, which was unavoidable. It's another 20,000. Oh, how many people did America kill here? Like, again, wrong conversation. Like, what's happening to our kids? And so some of that, like, it's not which Torah you have to say. It's how do you make room to speak the Torah that I know you well, that you know. That has nothing to do with Israel's legitimacy. It has nothing to do with genocide. It has to do with a war that was a just war that, at least for a year, has lost its direction and has no, it doesn't even attempt to have a serious moral framework. And a moral framework requires a direct correlation between the killing you do and the defense that you have a right for. A war of self-defense is a just war, and it's morally obligatory. If someone comes to kill you, you don't get to choose. I'll die. No, you have a right to defend yourself and your people. But war gives you, it's a space where you are not only legally permitted, but morally obligated to kill people. Let's just say that again. The uniqueness of just war is that it is a space where you are morally obligated to kill in the defense of your people. But therefore, you need to have a discussion and a direct correlation, not day to day. Take months between what you're doing and how it is enhancing your defense. And instead of that, all you have are these faux arguments about how could we leave Hamas in power. So what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? A serious moral conversation asks, what are my moral? I'm allowed to kill, but am I defending myself? So as long as one Hamas person exists, is the only way to achieve defense of Israel, the complete eradication of every single Hamas terrorist, the removal of every single Kalashnikov in Gaza. That's the only way to achieve defense? That's the only way? If we had 40, 50 tanks on the border of Gaza, 6 Apache helicopters in the air, and listened to the Tatzpitaniyot, October 7th wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't have happened. The defense of Israel in the future, this notion that I have to remove any possible, I have a moral right to kill in order to remove any possible threat to an Israeli, is complete moral insanity. It's insanity. That's the way we defend ourselves. So now let's go. We have to capture. Let's take over Lebanon. Let's take over Egypt. We should now be taking on Turkey. What? There's no place for politics. There's no place for deterrence. There's no place for military defense. Nothing. All you could do is attack and kill. Now, in that conversation, it's done. So part of what we need to do is reclaim this conversation. And we just have to plug away, and and I use it in my podcast. Bring out your Shimon ben Shetachs, bring out your Lifnei Meshurat Hadins, bring out your Rambams. You know what I mean? Afal pisha hadin kach enzo midat hachasidut enzo midarkei chochma umidat hachasidut. The last chapter, Ilchot Avadim. All of those stuff which says, where's your neshama? Where's your soul? Bring back Isaiah where God says, the famous Or Lagoyim, where God says, what do you think? Bringing you back to Israel was like, that was enough for me? Like, that's it? Like, I, God, King of the universe, my whole goal, I wake up in the morning, that I bring the Jews back. Isaiah says, that was that. Nakel Beinat, they're there. You know them. You use them. Bring them. Teach them. Bring them. Says, no, I brought you back so that you will be an Or Lagoyim. I didn't just so that you should come home and like we won, the Jews won. That was the end. I, God, filled my job as creator of the universe. Go back to those Torahs and just talk. Now, I'm not talking about which sermon or where and how and all the rest of that. I know you had a lot of workshops about that and people who are far more adept than I. But if you're asking, the Torah is there. Just never give it up. And don't let the moral self-righteous inhibit you from taking moral stands, even if it's not as pure as they imagined, and even if you didn't understand everything at their notion of the right time. Do you feel I responded? Yes, please. Can I just see a few hands? So I want to be respectful. I saw your hand. Was someone else had? Okay, please.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm Leora. On the way here, I just want to share an anecdote that I think responds to what you've been speaking about. I spent part of the summer being a rabbi at a camp, and I had like 12 Israelis staying at my house. It was mayhem. And part of the privilege of hosting all of those Israelis in my house is we had late night conversations. And I drove one of them into the city this morning on the way here, and she said to me, if everyone, she just finished her service, if everyone says that we're doing something wrong, maybe we are doing something wrong. And no one in Israel is willing to say that, and if I said that, my mother would slap me. And she goes, do you think we're doing something wrong? And so
there were a lot of conversations about that, about being in war and how do you come out of war and do we have a moral responsibility and what is the moral responsibility and how do we process the fact that we've just killed people and how do we process the fact that our friends have been killed and that we are hurting in a sense. And so my question, and the conversation that I witnessed between the Americans and the Israelis were completely different conversations. One's existential, one is spiritually existential. And my question is how, we're speaking about the adults in the room, the policymakers, but these kids who are coming out of war, they are the future and they are dealing with morally really complicated issues. What are we doing to support them in having these conversations so that they're going to go out and make strong voting decisions?
I know what I'm doing. I don't know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing.
What are you doing?
No, but again, it's a drop. But you're right in focusing on these groups of people. If you ever want to know, come sit next to me when I'm teaching. 5 times a year, I teach grade 12 boys' school. Have a conversation with them and to see where they're coming from before they're going into the army, or in our gap year program, where you have Americans and Israelis. And this year, it was almost impossible for them to talk. Listen, I'm doing more and more. The Institute used to work primarily with 50s and above. Now I think 70% of our work is 30 and below at the Hartman Institute. But again, it's so like you see a kid, it feels great to sell somebody something, and you feel really good about yourself afterwards. It's a lovely feeling, and then as you're watching them, they can't hear you, they can't use it. What do? So there's differences. I believe that Israelis who are still telling me how traumatized they are after October 7th and still want to see Israel as the victim, it's like, you got to wake up. You're not a victim anymore. Just stop it. Just stop it. But when you see little kids who are going into the army, who have to go, and now, killing is okay. I think, you can't be frightened from killing. Killing is okay. It's part of what we're training our children to do so that we could survive. And we can't be ambivalent about killing. And I know that sounds very crass, so that's the Israeli in me. As someone who's killed people. Most of you haven't killed people. I've killed people. So when you're there, I've killed people. I've shot people. But when you do so in a certain context, killing is part of what you are raised to do in Israel. You're raised to do it. You're expected to do it. And you see it as one of the greatest honors of your life. As long as it's done in the defense of your people. As long as if it's a just war. So you can't you can't coddle them and say, killing, you can't. Killing we're not going to live unless we, in some sense, normalize killing in certain contexts. And when you take kids and they get their guns, it's like, you got to do all these manipulations for them to listen, you go, who was in Jerusalem? You know the Tayelet near Emek Rephaim now? I don't know if any of you are runners, but have you ever seen Israeli high school students running with backpacks? You ever seen, do you know what that is?
They're training.
They're training so that they could make it into an elite killing unit. And they're training, because they don't naturally, make it life easy. I was in the tank corps. You could be a zlob in the tanks. I literally didn't own a muscle. I didn't know what one was. And we just recently, my mother just died, and we were looking at her. She didn't have pictures on phones. She had drawers of pictures. So they're actually much nicer when they're in picture form. So she has pictures of me of me when I went into the army. It was quite pathetic. But these kids, no, it really was. It was a very funny thing. But you look at it. But we have these kids, they're waking up early. They're waking up at which high school student do you know wakes up at 5 in the morning? so that he could train, so that he could get into the most dangerous unit possible. What's going through their mind? And now girls, same thing. There used to be, a clear dividing line. I didn't have to worry about my granddaughters. Granddaughters weren't my worry. Now, I really have to worry. My 14-year-old, she's very physical. And I know the stuff that she's being inundated with. Like almost everybody in our school, our girls, like they're going into military units, they're fighting to get into combat units, and they're phenomenal. They're like, so in order to function like that, you have to embrace killing, as sick as it means, killing as a normal part of our existence in Israel. But how do you do that? And listen, the army tried. The army wrote a code of ethic. It's just non-functional right now. Nobody's quoting no one's even looking at the code of ethic. Do everything in your power. Only use your force to the extent necessary. Do everything in your power, like to avoid civilian nothing. So it's like it's to do those. These kids are in a place where they have to embrace the necessity of killing in a context of a country which has determined that a war of self-defense is any war that Israel engages in. And for all practical purposes today, do you know the definition of a terrorist in the Israeli army in Gaza today? The official definition in Israeli statistics, and this is part of stuff that I know, is anybody we kill. After they are killed, they fall under the category of terrorist. No such category of suspect. I'm not saying that we shoot everybody. We don't. We're not shooting everybody. We're not shooting thousands every day. There's a lot of bad things going on, but after you kill somebody, they're put statistically. The head of, I don't know how to say, you know what, I can't go to those details. Suffice it to say that certain commanders, there's these operational books where everything gets written. You don't write suspect. After the death, that was a terrorist. So it's now in that environment, functionally, we have to talk with them, but they're going into a very, very difficult environment, which as long as there is no accountability, moral righteousness in the midst of war doesn't come from moral inspiration. It comes from operational precision. And when that is not there, there is chaos. And these kids are in a listen, I've said this, I speak to kids who've just come back from Gaza. Some of them you could speak to. Some of them, they just can't hear. But there was a difference between, it's starting to shift. And if you look in Israeli press, more and more, not just Haaretz, even the other newspapers are beginning to talk about things that Haaretz spoke about a year. They also didn't say anything till May. They were like everybody. Till May of 2024, they were more or less silent. From May 2024, and in particular, October 2024, they shifted their editorial policy and started to talk very clearly about things that are happening. Some of the other newspapers are starting. It's starting slowly. But these kids are, it's a different form of, the poem Alterman's Magash HaKesef? It's a different form of the Magash HaKesef. Some of them are dying, it's true, but they're going through experiences that they shouldn't have to go through. They shouldn't have. Yes, John.
Thank you very much for coming to the North America to be with us. I don't know what else was going on that brought you here, but I know that we
I have a new grandson.
Mazel tov.
He had his bris on Monday.
Mazel tov. So, my sense...
Oshri Yehuda.
Mazel tov. My sense is that we're all very tired. We are exhausted. We are fatigued. My sense is also that this Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is much more difficult than even last year. And last year we did not leave our people in a state of despair. I flew up here with my chavruta, my colleague from South Florida, where we don't wrestle with many of the things that many others do in North America, but yet I would like permission to ask you point blank, as we are experiencing the dangers on the left in North America, but we're also seeing our brothers and sisters in Israel who are taking to the streets. Right now, 1 month away, what is it, Rabbi Dr. Donniel Hartman, that you think that our people in the liberal Zionist pews need to know right now, need to feel, and need to do?
Okay.
Sorry
No, the first
to make you do my work for me.
First
Thank
is you're not allowed to be exhausted. And if you're not allowed to be exhausted.
That's the rabbis or the community?
The rabbis. You're not allowed. And if you feel it, tough. Get over it. It's not about you, stupid, as our tradition says. We don't have a luxury to be exhausted right now. I wouldn't recommend a Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur speech of Al Chet Shechatanu Ba'aza. I wouldn't give an Al Chet Shechatanu Ba'aza speech in from my shul. I don't even give an Al Chet Shechatanu speech in Israel. In both cases, it's not effective. Even though we know as rabbis that there is one of the great challenges, if I would summarize the challenge of Israel, is we know there cannot be tshuva without charata and without vidui. And in Israel, no one wants to do charata and no one wants to do vidui. So how do you do tshuva? We're going to have to try to find a new way. But what I would talk about is, I would talk about the Israel I dream of. The Israel I dream of. I know it's old. The Israel I dream of. I've been saying it for years, and I still do it. I dream of. I dream. The Israel I dream of. I would just talk about what is the Israel that I love. And admit openly. Say, I'm not here. You don't need me here from this bima to be a political analyst this year. You don't need me. There's plenty of podcasts that you could follow. You don't need me to now give you an analysis. And you also don't need me to give you the defense or the j'accuse. You don't need me for that. And you're divided, I would say, find the podcast that fits what you want to hear right now. I just want to tell you why I don't walk away from Israel. And I don't walk away from Israel not because of any assessment of this or that act that Israel did now, yesterday, or tomorrow. I don't walk away from Israel because Israel is my aspiration to build an exceptional Jewish society. I want to tell you what that is. I want to tell you what are the foundations of the Israel that I love. And there are going to be years, and it could be decades, where there's a huge gap between the Israel that I'm yearning for and the Israel that I have. Our people waited 2,000 years where the gap between the Israel they wanted and the Israel they didn't have couldn't have been bigger. But we talked about it and prayed about it. So I want to talk to you. What does Israel mean to me? And talk also about the values that you care about. Well, what about? I'm not talking about where Israel is or is not. They don't need on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur to hear how Israel's failing in Gaza, and they would need even less a propaganda-like advocacy speech. That's not have anything to do with Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. The only excuse for anybody to give that speech, there's only one excuse. And do you know what it is? If your contract's up. Then I'm not judging anybody. If your contract's up, as I was telling this general, I said, are there more of you? He said, yes. Is there any way to get you all together? He said, if we talk, we're going to get kicked out. So I don't want anybody being fired. So then give the speech that you need to give for your congregants. Other than that, say, what does it mean? Yes, talk about a two-state solution. Again, I just want look at the environment that people, everything, the only places that people bring realpolitik critiques are against the two-state solution. No one brings realpolitik critiques against continuing war, against the status quo. All of it is false. Like, if anything we know today is that the current reality is not beneficial, what is it that we want? Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is about taking responsibility for your life. It's about the myth that you can. That the human spirit could take control of who? Not of the world, of the decisions that you make. And who you were yesterday doesn't dictate who you are tomorrow. Kol nidre. That's it. They're gone. What do we have to let go of? And realize that so much of the public conversation is toxic for our souls. And give a speech that nourishes the soul. If I was a rabbi, now in your congregation there's certain problematics, but you can do it. And your contract is not up. I know, you're now good. So in that case, tell them, who are we? Let's talk about who the Jews are. And say in this space now, this, just like in Kol Nidre at the beforehand, Anu Mitirim Litpalelim Avaryanim, like we're creating a safe space. Well, in this space here, this is a safe space. This is not this, we're not on the campuses. And we're not dealing with anti-Semitic, anti-Zionists here. And we don't have to worry. Here, it's our space. And in our space, we have to ask ourselves, who do we want to be? Not what we tell them. That's a whole other conversation. Do we admit? But create in your shul and say, this is our space. That's what a spiritual space means. Do you know what it means to live in a space where people say that I'm going to make a list of all my sins alphabetically? I'm going to make it because I do believe that no matter what it is, I could overcome who I was. Let's dream a little bit. That's the speech I would give. And I try. And I try to do it in Israel. Just recently, all the senior commanders of the medical corps came to the Institute. For the second time since the war started, they took them all out of the front lines. And they brought them to talk about values in times of war. And I spoke. And at the end, one of the officers asked, so what do you want from us? He asked me a John question, like, what do you want from us? Like, how do I take this? I say, first of all, I can't give you any advice. Because what you have experienced and know about your experiences over the last week are far more than anything that I could bring to the table. But the only thing I could say to you is that as medical doctors, and this applies to rabbis, as medical doctors, you have two oaths. You have an oath to the military code, and you have Shvuat HaRofim, which obligates you to a certain moral code. As doctors, you are morally attuned to certain issues that the rest of the army is not as highly attuned to. In any place you are, wherever you go, talk. Don't be silent. Do it I can't tell you how. You do it in a way that you know is possible. But talk. You know what you are. You could be, I told them, the light that our army needs. Speech was over. I got a nice applause. At the end, the commander of the chief medical of the Mefaked Chil HaRefuah, how do I say that in English? Head of the medical corps, in front of all of his people, I come down, gets up and hugs me. Now, suffice it to say, that's not military protocol. Like, vulnerable, like, hug, like, I gave him a mission of elevating, and I didn't get into. You're like, you have that same job. I hope. Did that respond a little bit? Any other questions? Yes, please.
I thought it really responded, and I thank you. I'm sorry that I'm tearing up.
That's okay. Welcome to the team. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
We're all
So-
tearing up.
Right, we are all tearing up. We're all feeling broken. And you said earlier, we are the chief lovers of Israel here in the States, which is true, all of us here. Where do you see the hope coming from? And what will you say, or what can we say to, I got an email from a congregant last night, a retired Jewish educator. Someone is Yodat Sefer, who said, how do I say al-Khair about gossip if I can't say, or not I can't, if we can't say al-Khair for what has gone on in Gaza?
Why can't she privately say al-Khet?
That's not what she wants. She wants
You
the
to say it.
symbolic exemplar rabbi to get up on the bima
I know.
and say it. And then we're betraying Israel.
I know. I don't know what.
They go together, Donniel. What you said in response to John, and like I
Maybe they can.
It's so strange because I felt like I should have tweaked my question about. It's true, you shouldn't have to answer to other people about your tshuva, but like, why not inside the inside conversation?
You can.
Why aren't I think
You can.
I thought you were gonna say to us, your job, just like we have to be in Or Lagoyim, al chet shechatanu be'aza. And now let's move from there to what do we want to see and how do we be in Or Lagoyim?
See, great. I hear you. So first of all, before I say anything else, my first response to you is I don't know. I just don't know. It's too hard. And anything I'm going to say is going to be inadequate. I don't know. I say al-Chet, but there's a difference when you ritualize it on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There's a difference. It's not the same. I say it. Anybody who's listened to my podcast, anybody who's at the Hartman knows this all. That's why they're threatening to kill. That's why people are, it's like literally full press attack against us as now the enemies of Israel. But I'm saying it all the time. The issue of ritualizing that is something that is something that as rabbis, I'm not really good. I'm not a ritual rabbi. Like, I'm not a ritual person. It's like, I do rituals a little bit, but it's not the strong part of my Judaism. I'm much more a Talmud Torah Jew than a ritual Jew. And it's easy. I don't do a lot of stuff. The doing stuff, I'm not, I don't have a lot of advice on how do you create ritual. You're better at that than I am. I'm just aware of the fact that when you ritualize it, it has an enormity and a weight that you should think about. And I don't know. And I wish I could tell you, I don't mind with the speech I'm getting. Part of the reason why I started the way I started was to start with al-Chet. I was doing an al-Chet shechatanu. That was my opening. And now I do it as a teacher. To do it in ritual, in the context of your shul, I hear you. I hear you. I want to hug you. But I don't think I could do it. And that's for the non-ritual person who doesn't understand rituals the way you do. I don't think on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur I could do that. And I'm not saying I'm right. Because conceptually, why not? I know, I'm with you.
You said it.
I say, there's a very big difference between saying things and davening things.
No, so I wasn't saying davening, sermons. You said to John, don't give the al-Chet shechatanu, don't put that in your sermon. I think that's us being a teacher.
Could be.
I don't think that
John left, so he doesn't hear your. Oh, you're still here. Oh.
I've spoken.
No, and I wasn't worried. I thought you had to catch a plane. I'm good. No judgment from Donniel Hartman. Huh.
I just think it's different. When we're speaking, we are speaking as
I know.
It doesn't have to be
I know.
ritual.
I don't know. Again, it depends. Again, if you would, each one, it depends on your shul. It depends on your shul. I don't know. It's also so hard when you have 4 speeches for 90. That's the only thing 90% of your congregation is going to hear. Like those are your 4. Like that's an impossible position to even be in. And that's why sometimes not doing all the things that everybody wants you to do all the time in those 4 speeches, and find another way. Doesn't have to be at those 4 speeches. Like that can't be. But here, I feel like you know much. I would give that speech. This is what I talk about in Israel. I talk about what are the principles that should guide us. I say to them, I don't want to get into here whether we're living by them or not. We can argue that, we can debate that. I want to talk about who we ought to be. Now, many people realize the minute I talk about that I'm already critiquing who we are. But then they want me to stop even a conversation about who we ought to be. Now, by the way, when you talk about who you ought to be, it's another way of saying al chet shechatanu. Not every al chet needs to be explicit. That's also one of the reasons why we do it by an aleph bet, and you're not supposed to add more. What happens if I have 2 bets this year? Sorry, you only get 1 bet. You have 1 bet, now go on to your gimel, but I have more bets. No, it's just, you don't, it's not about, that would be but again, in my Beit Midrash, it is absolutely, it's obligatory to know when it is that I'm wrong and to declare it. So I don't know if I could do the ritual. I don't know if I could. Depends on your shul. I don't know. And I apologize for, I don't feel that I can help you. It's just an impossible, you are in an, if it's at that place, I don't know. I'm going to stop on that one. Who else had their hand up? One more. Yes, please. Speak to hope. Make me happy.
I don't know.
It's like, I'll make you happy.
I don't know.
Should I tell you something once? A lot of people are saying to me, because my mother died and a grandchild was born. So I said, don't it works. It's like it should be a nechama. It's no nechama. My grandchild is no nechama for my mother. 0 nechama for my mother. I was thinking, it's ephes. Completely 0 nechama. Like it's like almost, the people who are saying it to me sometimes, like, as a human being, you don't work that way. You just don't work that way. Part of my heart is mourning, and that's it. I'm able to find some part of my heart to feel joyful. And part of me is fine. Part of me is not. And it's not about you can't. That's just not, you just can't. And it doesn't mean I'm not happy when I don't see my grandson, and it was lovely. But he doesn't have all of my heart right now. He can't. Some of it is broken. That's the way it is. Turns out I was much closer to my mother than I imagined. No, it's like if it's true, for 15 years I took care of her, so it would be, I made sure she was never ever alone for any it was like we had a very, very intense relationship. And literally, but, so it is. What? No, I don't want to. I had such an intense shiva, I can't. I can't write it. You're the first, I didn't even want to, you're the first group that I'm teaching since this. So I don't want to. But it's the same thing about Israel. It's like, just, I can't heal the brokenness. I just don't only live in the brokenness. I can't make the brokenness go away. It's there. And I would say to you, and again, I have so many agendas when I speak to you, which I don't share to you. But now I'll tell you some of them. Some of them is part of what I do is, for some people, and I know I'm a bad rabbi for some people. I know I'm the wrong rabbi for a lot of people, and they usually just leave the room or don't show up. I know I'm not I'm the rabbi for people who are struggling. For someone who everything works for them, I'm the worst rabbi in the world for them. I'm for the people who are fighting to trying to find their place within Judaism, with God and with Israel. And part of what I do is I validate through my own. I never say anything that's not what I'm experiencing, but I say things that not enough people say because it's not kosher, it's not allowed. Part of what I want you to do is I want you to feel that what you're feeling is not a problem. What you're feeling is reality. It's there. And we can't pretend that it's not there. And it's there, and there's nothing wrong with you either way. It's there. And in your speeches and in your Torah, it has to come out whether on Yom Kippur or not. But the only way we could do Israel is it's not by being schizophrenic, it's just by realizing that we are mourning and living at the same time. That's what we're doing. We're mourning and living at the same time. We're mourning Gaza. We're mourning its consequences. We are. We're mourning them. We're mourning what it's doing to our friends. We're mourning what it's doing to our kids. We're mourning all those people who used to be pro-Israel who just can't anymore. We're mourning the fact that we are now exposed to levels of anti-Semitism that we couldn't even, in our worst nightmares, we couldn't imagine. And this is nothing. What we're experiencing objectively is on a Richter scale. Do you have a Richter scale in America? You know, this is like a 2 on the Richter. This is like, in Jewish history, anti-Semitism today barely breaks 1. Like, over 2. But still, for those people who were living outside of a earthquake zone, a 1 or a 2, it shakes you up a little bit. You're mourning that. You're mourning what's happening. You're mourning, you don't know what is happening to Israelis. Still today, 60% of Israelis are for banishing all Gazans. Today. So we're mourning the fact that so many things that were certain and stable and enlightening and uplifting are I would say to you, mourn. Mourn. But find that place in your heart. Like, I have a grandson. It's cute. They tell me Oshri Yehuda's a nice, they always pick these. I would like a Reuven, a Shimon. It's like if I would give you a list, I now have 7 grandchildren and 7 grandchildren and 2 step-grandchildren. And there's no way with these new names that I can remember all of them. It's like, give me a name I could remember. Each one of them is Ori. Anyway, it's just like, how you spell? Now I have an Osh. It's like just too much. So, but they say it's a sweet name. They love the name and they picked it for good reason. So, and they're great kids. But I would find in Israel, find the part that you love. And for me, the part that I love is not finding the one Israeli who agrees with me. For me, the place of the Israel that I love is the Israel that I'm spending my life trying to create, that you're trying to create. That's my grandchild. That's my Zionist grandchild. That's my place. And that's why nobody's going to stop me. Nobody's going to intimidate me. Nobody's going to move me from it. I'm still going to remain for my whole life a troubled, committed Jew, a troubled, committed Zionist, because if anybody is not troubled, forget now. Now I'm hyper troubled, but that's okay. But I'm hyper troubled, but still the troubledness doesn't undermine my commitment. So talk about what you love. It's our family. Be well, people.